Words have a lot of power. They can either make a child or break a child.
Does this start at an age where we don't have understanding of a body?
Come and tell me that, I want the Korean glass skin. I want to be as petite as them. But Korean body constitution, genetics are so much different than an average Indian person.
What are the psychological aspects of body image and its related challenges?
So body image is a visual representation of what we think our body is like. Toxic positivity is the need.
Kushnaz Noras is a consulting psychologist and certified psychotherapist with 17 years of experience in treating mental health disorders. She helps teenagers and adults struggling with depression, anxiety, body image, addictions, and relationship challenges. She is committed to giving back to the field of psychology by collaborating with schools and supporting students eager to launch podcasts and channels dedicated to mental health awareness.
So tell us about your background in psychology. How did you get into it, and how has this been your direction of career?
So psychology, it was interesting that earlier, much earlier when I was younger, I think I wanted to do something in HR or do a business. And then finally, when I got through psychology, I realized that this is where my passion is. I was always an agony aunt with people, solving problems with friends and all of that. And I thought I should make a career out of it. I've done clinical psychology. So when I was studying abnormal psychology, I knew that this is something which interests me. And that's how I took that up. Then I did my master's. And it's been 17 years since I've been practicing. And
Wow.
it's the most favorite thing of my day that I get to see patients. I get to be a part of their lives, help them break patterns. So it's a very fulfilling job.
Amazing. Let's talk about body image and body shaming today. So, can you tell us what are the psychological aspects of body image and its related challenges?
See, one thing we have to importantly note is that from time to time, most of us may have a problem with our appearance, but it's like a temporary thing, right? Where we feel, oh, I feel bloated, I have a balding patch, I've gained a few kgs, lost a few kgs. So that is fine. But there's a big difference between this momentary dissatisfaction with self and body image. So then obviously people will say, what is body image?
Yeah.
So body image is a visual representation of what we think our body is like. So interestingly, body image has nothing to do with how we actually look. It's about what we tell ourselves about how we look.
Yeah.
And people put themselves in categories like I'm positive, negative, or neutral.
Right.
And then that can lead to a lot of distress if they feel that, they look disproportionate or something needs to be fixed. That can lead to a lot of things like depression, anxiety, self-doubt. So that is what body image does to a person. So as far as possible, if it is positive or neutral, it helps. The moment it goes into negativity, it becomes a problem.
But this perspective of self is not based on facts. This is based on emotions. Am I right?
Yes, or your opinion of how you think or how you view yourself, right? And which is emotional in nature. Yes.
So all of this is based on emotion.
Yes.
So tell me, what are some of the most common misconceptions that people have about body image and self-love?
Now, there are many, but let's say if I can think of a few. Let's say the first thing, that if I have to love myself, I have to be perfect. People should also constantly, validate me, or I have to be appeasing to people. If I'm not attractive, then I become a failure. I'm useless. There are patients who come and tell me that people only like good-looking people. And this definition also of good looks is made by the person themselves.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
good looks for anybody
Yes.
in the world is
Correct.
opinion of self.
Yes.
Like
It
if
is
today I
subjective.
say you're good looking and
Yes.
the person next to me may
Correct.
feel like she's average, but that is just an
Yes.
opinion.
Correct.
It's not factual.
No, it's not factual, but misconceptions come from there. Then the other misconception is that when people put conditional acceptance towards self, like only if, any sentence starting from only if I had or only if I was. So it's like only if I had green eyes, only if I was 5 kgs maybe thinner, 5 inches taller. So all these things are related to self-image, and that's how it comes down. Actually, these are all misconceptions.
Right.
You can be who you are and be happy with self.
So tell me, where are these stemming from?
See, basically, it has a lot to do with, let's say, so many influences that we have, right, in life. There are cultural influences, family shapes us, social media, movies, all of that. So I can explain them.
No, what I mean is like, does this start very young? Does this start at an age where we don't have understanding of a body
Yes.
for real? Like, let's say a 7-year-old or 8-year-old girl or boy in today's day and age is watching her mother
Yes.
appreciate her own body
Yes.
or be critical about her own body. Is that going to be a huge influence? Or at 15, when she has pimples and she's going through growth, and the hormones are fluctuating, and she looks at herself, and that's when she starts to form body image. What is, like, which one is it?
It can be both,
Right.
or it can be one of the two. So let's start with the mother thing. So many mothers who have either struggled with weight or have anybody in the family who've struggled with weight are always very conscious on what they feed their kid. And sometimes unintentionally, inadvertently, they feed that to their children.
Yeah.
The belief that, you have to be strong, or you have to be a certain way, or don't gain too much weight, or be this way. Or if a mother herself is like a lot about her diet or exercise, the child is learning it, because children model this kind of behavior.
Yeah, everything is
And they-
observation.
They observe and then they learn.
Yeah.
So that's one. So if that happens from an early age.
Correct.
And in teenagehood, what happens is that the body goes through many changes.
Correct.
Right? So then suddenly, like you said, that suddenly somebody with clear skin will have pimples.
Yeah.
Some children just shoot up in like a year or so.
Yeah.
Or some visibly gain weight. For girls, when they develop physically,
Yeah.
it's a big problem, because they don't know how to deal with it. And if
Obviously.
in their group, they are the only ones who are probably, let's say, on the heavier side, they struggle a lot. And that's how the self-doubt starts, that why am I looking different
Yeah.
than the others around
Others.
me? So it can be both. It can either start from childhood through somebody else's influence, who's either a primary caregiver or somebody that, is with you most of the time. Or it can start when the person themselves, start believing something by either looking at a social media profile, or maybe some series, or looking at people around them. Can happen because of that as well.
I'm hearing nowadays teenage girls as young as pre-tweens, I think it's called.
Preteens. yes.
Pre-teens. I'm hearing girls as old as 11 want to be on a diet. As early as 11 want to make sure they have the perfect body.
Yes.
Firstly, 11 is an unachievable goal for a perfect body, because your body still hasn't developed.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
So you can't even decide at that point.
Right.
And my understanding of observing what's happening around me and reading about different things that's happening in different cities, I believe in schools it's become like a norm where girls talk about it. It is a
Yes.
conversation that this is what people online look like,
Yes.
people on Instagram look like, because now they have access.
Yes.
And at 11 they have decided body image.
Yes.
How harmful do you think is moving forward?
It is very harmful, right? Because you don't know what reality is anymore. This is, your perception is developing because they're very young.
Yeah.
I would still say that a 10, 11, 12-year-old, their minds are like wet cement. It's not
Yeah.
really formed, right?
Very impressionable.
And very, very. So in that case, when they see these things, I mean, they are getting influenced by what the industry wants to show. Maybe the industry is not even targeting their age group.
Yeah, but it's happening.
But it's happening because it's all around, right? So my own daughter is 12, and in her class, before they go to a party, the other day I saw something on a WhatsApp call that they said, okay, I'm wearing this. And one girl said that, okay, but a skirt or a dress isn't going to look nice on me. I don't think that earlier people used to say that.
No,
Or
we
the
didn't have an
obsession-
idea.
Exactly. Or the obsession with, what do you give a child? So for a 12, 13-year-old, give a Sephora or a Nykaa Lux voucher because, they want to buy makeup.
That's crazy.
Yes. And then some kids have become, fans of K-pop, K-dramas. So what happens there is that they try or strive to be like those.
Yeah,
So many people come and tell me that, I want the Korean glass skin. I want to be as petite as them. But I mean, Korean body constitution, genetics are so much different than an
Yeah.
average Indian person.
And that you can only understand as an adult.
Correct.
A mind of a child is not
Yes.
exposed enough in that direction to understand that it's not even humanly possible.
Correct. Absolutely.
I can't expect to have a Korean body, or I can't expect to have a
Exactly.
Latina body, because I am not from those genetics.
Right. But for them to understand is difficult.
That's what I'm
because they're
saying. They're not
constantly-
equipped enough.
Yes, they're not equipped. And then they're constantly looking at fan theories. They're following accounts of those people that they like. They're following their life. So they are so involved that their attention is only towards that. So what they see is what they believe in,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And because they're impressionable, they cannot judge between, right, wrong. They can't do that.
You know, when we were 10, 11, I think the maximum outing was to an SL World.
Right.
And I think the maximum happiness came from that my parents treated me without me working for it. Because
Correct.
in our time, we had to work for
Yes.
a
Yes.
reward.
Yes.
And if it wasn't a Sunday and you got something, it's like, wow, it's not even a Sunday. How did my grandparents take me out for ice cream, or parents allowed this, whichever way it was. But because the world is changing, and we can't expect today mothers and fathers to keep that kind of reward system, and the only outing is to SL, it's not possible. The world has evolved. Saying that, today going to a concert for a 10-year-old has become normal.
Yes.
Which means that a 10-year-old girl looking at Taylor Swift is thinking it's normal to look like this. Every girl should look like this.
Yes.
But it's not humanly possible.
Right.
What do you think is the best way to deal with that scenario? How do you give the right mindset that, okay, you can attend all these concerts, you can watch a little bit of TV, social media, whatever, you're going to be exposed to this, but hey, let's not forget the reality. How do you strike that balance?
So obviously first by normalizing this at home. So first, how you say that if you have to clean up a house, you have to first do it where it starts here personally, right? So if anybody in the house is doing that, that needs to stop first. Another thing is that self-concept or self-love can be developed very early on in life.
Yeah.
Where parents teach the child to look beyond their looks or appearance. Right? When you show a child how to look at themselves as a whole. So we do this little technique if people come in therapy. We tell them to draw like a stick figure of a human being. And we can ask maybe certain things like if they say that, okay, I want to look like Taylor Swift, that's just a part of it. And then we make the kids, like kids or teenagers, write what are the other aspects of them. So to be able to teach them to value your entire self, not look at your body in parts, but also look at your whole self. That kind of learning can be done either in school, that can be done at home, and that's how the entire image shifts. And the good part is that because they're so impressionable, you can do that.
Yeah, you
but
can
don't
work on
wait
it.
for too long, right, to do this. You can tell a 9-10-year-old also how the whole of them is important and not just a part of it.
Because actually and factually, appearance will only matter for like
Right.
first 2 minutes.
Correct.
After that, if you're an empty-headed or an empty personality, it's actually not going to get you anywhere.
Yes, so you
Factually.
teach, correct.
You
Yes.
have to, that is the reality that I think parents may not be preaching or teaching their kids
Right.
today, because the focus is, even for the mothers, the focus has become looks,
Right.
dress up, hair, face jobs, whatever.
Yes.
I don't want to look my age. I don't want to be a certain way. But it is very important to remember the material of that person really matters.
Yes.
How long will the face matter? First 2 minutes you enter a room. Okay, first 2 minutes you're dressed well, you got yourself together, you're well put together, it'll matter. First 2 minutes, it will matter. It will win over a shabby person, let's say. I'm not talking about looks, I'm talking about how well you're put together.
Yes.
But after that, it really depends what comes out of your mouth.
Yes, it does.
So
Yes.
in life, I don't think that look part will last.
It won't. But that is on the parents to teach or the schools to teach. That you teach kids life skills and you make them more capable. Like have them learn a little. So not 10, 11, but let's say teenagers
Yeah.
or young adults. Equip them with, them knowing other things as well.
Right.
By knowing practical things. So that their also concentration is not only on looks. And ask them to be good people. Teach them things like patience, tolerance. If there is entitlement, then one has to be tolerant towards a few difficulties that come your way. So if we could teach them that, then they know that there is so much more to life than just how you look or how you present yourself.
So how do you define a healthy body image versus an unhealthy body image?
Okay. So I think a body image which is healthy means that, you are content with what you have. You're not constantly dissatisfied and you are building body acceptance. right? Now, people generally misunderstand the word acceptance because in normal lingo, acceptance is something that you would do only if you agree to it. Like
Correct.
today, if I get a gift for you, you'll accept it. If I compliment you, you will accept that compliment. You'll
Correct.
accept a promotion, a title. But psychological acceptance is a bit different. It means that you acknowledge the presence of it, right? If you have a flaw, which is like maybe real or an opinion,
Yeah.
but you learn to live with it rather than going in a cycle of bitterness, anger, frustration towards self. So when you don't have all of that, that's healthy body image. Now, negative body image is the opposite of that. So that would be that when you are obsessed about fixing something about yourself, when you demean, degrade yourself, and you keep thinking that others also around you are looking at that flaw and that you are somewhere lesser. People put themselves in a category also. So many people come to me and say that, okay, I am a certain way, so I am in a category of undesirable. That would obviously mean a negative self image.
You know, I read a very interesting theory, and tell me how you feel about it. Healthy or unhealthy version of self is only based on comparison.
Correct.
Okay, so I find this very interesting.
Yes.
If we did not have mirrors in the world, we would only be able to look at others.
Right.
We wouldn't know how we look.
We look.
So there would be no comparison. So there would be no I am good enough or not.
Yes.
Now, this theory came from a psychologist who wrote this in, I think, in 1912 or 1915, as early as that, saying that before mirrors were invented, the only way to see yourself was in water,
Yeah.
your reflection. And that is also a very distorted image. It's not like I'll be able to point out how many pimples and how my skin looks and how I have dark pigmentation and whatever else. So your image of self was very strong.
Right.
Because your image of self was based on your character, on your ability to do things, on your skill sets.
Correct.
That was your image of self. Your image of self changed as mirrors came along.
Right.
Then your image of self came as we progressed, and the society said, not just mirrors, let's talk about how you and I look different and what will be categorized as good and bad.
Right.
So do you think that if mirrors weren't invented, and let's say today's world, as developed as it may have been, if we did not have mirrors or we did not have this theory of comparison that started 200 years ago, do you think we'd be different as human beings and how we'd function?
Absolutely. Absolutely different. And if mirrors weren't there, but we made it worse, right? In the modern society. So now not only do we have reflective surfaces and mirrors, now we started with the whole concept of selfies. Now we are putting ourselves on Instagram and then making ourselves vulnerable to be judged by other people. So we've gone much ahead than a mirror also.
Not only that, AI, for example,
Yes.
or technology, for example, when you and I see wedding albums of our parents,
Yes.
there were those natural pictures
Natural
taken by a
pictures taken.
camera,
Yes.
and the bride looked its best with minimum makeup and hair and
Yes.
change of
Yes.
appearance, I would say. And it was like, oh my God, look at my album. I was so beautiful. I wore red. I have makeup. I have jewelry, XYZ. What happens now? When technology came in and gave us the option of editing. So it's almost like technology puts it in your head. Oh my
Yes.
God, you're ugly. Let's change it. Change the colors, change
Yes.
the direction, change the width, change the slimness, fatness, darkness, brightness. So it may not even be coming from self. It is so influential with how we're moving forward.
Right.
How do you think we protect ourselves?
It's very difficult, firstly, to protect yourself from there because everybody else is doing that, right?
Right.
But either you surround yourself with like minded people, or you can tell yourself that you establish this rule with yourself that this is not what I do. So simple ways of doing that is that, if okay, the lighting is not good, you can change your filter, but the need to constantly appear glamorous, dolled up, as though, you were some mannequin or you were walking a ramp. I think people should be that way only on certain occasions, not always. Problem because they make you want to go and see what it has. I have had patients who used to go on this app called Face App, where you see how you will look when you grow old. And that used to really upset them. That, oh my God, this is what I'm going to look. And, I cannot look. So now I think I need fillers and I need Botox because
But they
I
were
don't
coming
want
to
to.
you for counseling on this.
Yes.
So at least they were aware of that they have a problem.
Yes, they were aware that they had a problem, but it used to bother them. Right? So I think what we do is that I always say that change happens from self. If we want the society to change, it doesn't help to complain, but we do that. We teach our kids that. Maybe we surround ourselves with people who are like-minded, and together we can move forward as a society which focuses less on appearance and maybe focuses more on what kind of a person you are. So we can do that. We can be the change that we want to see.
But like you said before, it's getting harder and harder. 30 years ago, the only way to see a perfect image was on a magazine.
Right.
How many magazines would you buy in a month? 2, 3, 4
Correct.
at the most. So you were exposed to 4 journals where you would see perfect women.
Right.
Perfect legs, perfect height, perfect skin, perfect hair. And even at that point, 30 years ago, we knew somewhere that this is a photo shoot.
Right.
But today, people have photo shoots like moments. They're dressed up and dolled up, like you
Yes.
said, but then they're curating it and showing it as this is me waking up.
Waking up. Yes.
This is
Correct.
me in a cafe having coffee with my friend, but look how naturally beautiful I am. But it's
Right.
all with what those magazine people were doing it in natural habitat.
Right.
It's everyone is selling a story.
Yes, they
So-
are. And that's what technology has done, right? It has become so readily available and accessible to everyone. I mean, 30 years ago, you'd need like a proper photographer, a proper camera. I mean, look at
Yeah.
our phones today. I mean, they have such good cameras. Probably you don't even need a professional camera most of the times.
100%.
Like for your
and
daily
people have
life.
learned those skills to edit those basic photos and make it look great.
And but those apps are also there. I mean, those apps teach you, they make it easy for you. So technology makes it easy, but it is also pushing us into believing that this is how life should be, or this is how your Instagram should be. I mean, show me one person's Instagram account. Yes, maybe few, maybe there, but most of the Instagram accounts will just think that you're partying hard, you're doing this. There are no struggles, nothing shown
it's
ever.
Like I said, it's all curated.
Right, it's all
moments.
curated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Best moments of your life.
Yes.
No one's
correct.
posting like, oh my god, this
No.
was such a low day.
Nobody-
And today was a normal day.
Yes, nobody posts a weakness, a bad day, nothing. Everybody just wants to put their best foot forward because of the need for external validation. And we just become, like a generation or a society which only looks for external validation, for those likes, the views. It's so important. And, the first time that you realize you're doing that is when if you're getting too many likes or too little likes, and if that is really spoiling your mood.
Yeah,
or
if it's
even
really
making
a-
you happy,
Yeah.
then that means that, you've already fallen in that bandwagon.
So, do you feel the percentage of people coming for help on body image, body shaming, or things related to feelings of self are growing in number over the years?
Yes, they are growing in number because nowadays there is also awareness. So there are some people who actually come to me and say that, I don't want to take a wrong decision. But people come to me that, Kushnas, you'll not believe, we always look at our bank accounts. I'm looking at my bank accounts and seeing that, can I afford this cosmetic surgery procedure? Can I, like if I do this filler, it will cost that much. So maybe, do you think I really need it? So sometimes they come to seek reassurance and also learn to break patterns on these negative self-images. Yes, and that is increasing.
So, tell me some of the early signs that mothers and fathers can see in their children today because of the growing, availability of tools to correct yourself and this whole concept of being sold of self-correction.
Right.
So it's getting harder and
Yes.
harder for us as parents to, to tell our children like, no, you don't need to go down this route. But as much as you say, they have their peers, they have school, they have friends, they have media, social media, phones, accessibility. What are the early signs that we should be noticing that shows that these children are developing a negative body image?
Right. So it could be children or teenagers, anybody developing that. So firstly, if they are constantly talking about weight, or if they're constantly talking about the food that they eat, or you see that your child is now looking in the mirror more, or anything done or asked for to change their appearance. Like, do they ask? I mean, I have people as young as 15, 16 saying that, I want to contour my face because I think, contouring, I want to learn
Do
to
they know
contour.
the meaning of contour at 15?
Yes,
16?
they do. Yes,
We
they
didn't.
do. We didn't,
I
but
actually
they
didn't know
do.
till a few years ago.
Yes, but they do. So I think we are only catching up with them, or we are just going at the same pace as them.
Yeah, same pace as them.
Yes,
You're right.
right. So they are, so any need like that, or they like subtly asking how much money we have, and then when you delve deeper, the need. So basically, we have to understand that the need to be different, or the need to change, or the need to fix. Like some children keep checking their weight very often, that how much I weigh, and if that is like a red flag, one must delve deeper and see what they are trying to do. So, and otherwise, some kids who have other body image issues may try to camouflage themselves, wearing hoodies, like athleisure kind of clothes, but not always. It could be fashion sense
Yeah.
related also. But anything done to either fix, camouflage, hide anything about appearance should be taken into consideration.
So, this is one aspect. The other aspect is there is a lot of self love and self acceptance, but the others won't let you breathe. So, I'll give an
Yes.
example. There are many kids who are very happy eaters. They are happy being how they are.
Yeah.
They say they are must. in
Mast
Hindi.
wala.
Must hai.
Huh.
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's eating, he's a little chubby, he runs around in school. She is dark in skin, but she doesn't care because she sees her mother who is very self assured. Hence, she feels very self assured of herself. She may have glasses, oily hair, but doesn't care. I'm saying there are many children who are very secure because they probably come from very secure parents, secure homes,
Yes.
and where the conversation is not based around appearance. Makes a huge difference.
Yes.
Let's say those children are very self-aware and self-assured. Now they go to school and get bullied. As you know, bullying is becoming very normal.
Yes.
It is being normalized in our society. I don't know for what reason. What exactly here do these kids do?
So, see, some can deal very well. In fact, interestingly, I have somebody who comes to me who tells me that people call her overweight, or they say that, oh, you're dark skinned, or why is your hair so curly? Right? But she says, but I don't see that problem because, she's a voracious reader. Her family does not believe in appearance. They just believe that a person should be good.
Exactly.
So some kids can save themselves when they come from homes which also, have the same ideology.
And they don't focus on appearance.
They don't.
Yeah.
Right? But sometimes it is difficult. So that is a problem with body image. That sometimes a person was not even conscious about something. And now by the society telling them that, they've started realizing or noticing something about themselves,
Yeah.
which they never saw.
Yeah.
Right? So bullying does impact a person a lot. And then it leads to psychological distress and, a person feeling unsure of themselves.
It stems from childhood, let's say bullying. And a lot of this body image comes from childhood. So I see it as two aspects, and correct me if I'm wrong. One is the child believes they're fat,
Yes.
believes they are thin, too dark, too short. Whatever the shortcomings they have believed about themselves are coming from family. So they see their mother being unhappy with their weight, their aunt in the house, their cousin, their elder sibling, whoever. And their excess need for validation because the parents aren't validating.
Right.
So the parents are not saying, I love how you read, I love how you sing, you're a great this, you're a great that. When parents aren't encouraging, then they need this kind of validation based on appearance because they have nothing else going for them.
Correct.
And I feel the other aspect is, like what we spoke about, they're very self-assured, but they go to school and they get bullied.
Yes.
They go for classes and they get bullied. They go for swimming and somebody else is saying, oh my God, you look so fat in that swimsuit.
Yes.
You don't wear a two-piece. We all kids, we are 10, we are 11 and we all are trying on these two pieces. And why does your mother put you in a single piece, So I think these are the two ways. Is there a third direction?
No, this is pretty much it. It is pretty much it. That is what happens. So that's what, as a society, we need to make that change. So if that is happening, if bullying is happening, then I think it needs to be addressed. Sometimes people come to me that we don't want to address because it is our best friend's child who is doing this.
Yeah.
And maybe they want to, save a friendship, or they don't want to come across as the bad person. So they tell the child to keep quiet.
Yeah.
Which may not be a very helpful thing to do.
No.
It would be good to speak to the parent, and not in a very accusatory or aggressive way, but in a way that the parent understands. So if they are really your friends, then they will understand.
But if
And
they
if
are-
not, then it's fine.
But you know how it is, Krishna's, be a friend or not, people are not accepting of things that your child might be doing wrong in school. So even if, let's say, your child comes and my child are in the same class, and your child has a habit of picking up things, may not be realizing, I'm not saying that child is a thief, but may have done it once or twice unrealizingly, and my child comes and says, I know this kid took my best pencil box last week, and I know this kid picked up my water bottle. It's supremely awkward to come up with that.
Yes.
Now, even if you think you want to, even if I think I want to help you and your child, but to you it will not come across like that.
Right.
And let's say bullying. My thought process as somebody who advocates psychology, I say that if someone's bullying, firstly, that person is coming from a home where he's not loved or she's not loved. Because what is bullying? It is a display of emotions of unsatisfactory home environment.
Yes. Correct.
That is my understanding of it after so many years of studying this subject.
Yes.
So I feel let's sympathize with that kid also. So if I'm coming up to a parent and saying your child is bullying other children, the parent instantly said, no, my child is not a bully, your child is too weak.
So at that time, I think, like an intervention of sorts would help, which would be like a professional intervention. And if it is a class mother or if it is a class parent or friend, I think, obviously, see, the first time when you go to a person, they are obviously going to be defensive. Right? That's human nature.
Yeah.
That no, we've not done it. But if it is dealt with tactfully, there is still a lot of hope. So it can be done through school, it can be done through separate professional help also. But it needs to be done.
Addressed.
We shouldn't be quiet about it, or we shouldn't teach our kids to keep quiet about
Yeah.
it. Because that's not nice. Because what are you teaching kids?
Exactly.
That,
And I feel
like, keep
the
quiet.
parent of the bully is responsible to teach the child that I'm sorry, what have we done wrong for you to go and take out your anger or frustration on another child? And the kid who's getting bullied needs to be reassured, like, don't start thinking that of yourself.
Correct.
So both parties actually need help.
Yes.
And
they
I
do.
think a huge help in this manner would be that the school takes it up as a
Yes.
regulatory thing.
Yes.
Today I hear of so many schools and
Yes.
so many children, I'm sure you're aware, are facing so many issues where
Right.
they really think nothing of themselves. Their self-image and the self-love has really gone down
Yes.
because it's become okay to accept anything what anybody's saying about you.
Right.
And it was not normal back in
wasn't.
our days.
It
They were
wasn't.
like, please, she's jealous.
Yes.
Please, she
Right.
doesn't like me. That's why she talks bad about me.
So now it has changed that because she's saying something to me that might be true.
Yeah.
That is the new concept these days.
Yeah.
Because of external validation.
Correct.
Right? Like today, if I say that, hey, you're wearing a black suit, you look at it and you're like, no, it's not black, it's grey. But
Correct.
now there is self-doubt in general in this world where, oh, okay, so Kushna is saying this is black, so what if it is black? So
Yeah.
that is a problem which is coming
And
up.
why am I not able to see it?
Yes, and why am I not able to see it? Is it
So
wrong?
much self-doubt.
Correct, so much self-doubt. So for that, I think schools should have a zero tolerance policy, even when it is related to appearance and body image bullying. I think it can start with schools also wanting to invest in good counselors and psychologists.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen so many times that, those people are also not very well paid. So the ones who are well paid may not want to stick around at a lower salary, right? So they must invest in good resource, the ones who can regularly take workshops, or maybe they can tell experts to come and take sessions with the kids. And other changes that start from home and school would be something like two things: that do not use appearance or weight as a conversation starter.
Yeah.
Okay, and don't describe somebody, if you can, as far as possible, through appearance, right? So like, let's say that if I have met somebody and I'm trying to describe it, immediately people in India will go, like that, like whoa, like that.
That's
Don't
so
do
true.
that. So I teach that to my child. I do that myself. I do not ever use somebody's, appearance to describe someone. You could say, oh, this is the person we met on Friday. You remember she was wearing a green dress. Those all are neutral things. Oh, she stays in Juhu or she stays in Bandra. So work a little harder. I know it's easier to do this, but it's not okay. And when we don't do that, our kids learn that way.
And what if you're not even talking to the child, you're explaining it to a
No, to
friend?
anyone. I'm saying
and
to
they are
anyone.
observing, and then that becomes their internal voice.
Yes, internal voice. And the other thing is a conversation starter every time, every social event. Hey, hi, looking so thin.
Yeah.
It's, oh, lost weight, oh, working out. Don't do that. The reason also is that so many people come to me and say that, okay, when they have lost weight, they do feel good temporarily, maybe for a minute or so. But then they say, Khushnas, and we get so anxious that right now you're liking me because I've lost weight. What if I gain weight again? So now I have to diet because now in front of you, I need to look good or a certain way. So I think weight as a conversation starter and to describe appearance has to end in schools and in life in general. So if we take that step, it would be towards, contributing towards a good society and a healthier, psychologically healthier society.
Absolutely. And do you think that there's a psychological impact, even if, like, the comments about weight and appearance are, well intentioned? So let's say a grandma.
Yeah.
Okay, you come home
Yes.
from a dance class and she's looking so cute. Your hair is looking so nice today. Did you have a good dance rehearsal? Now, her intention may not be bad, but do you
Right.
think those comments also have impact?
Yes. Yeah, they do, because that again then shows that you're worrying more about the appearance. Right? So one thing people have to understand is that this is a good intention comment you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? So firstly, let's understand this. Words have a lot of power.
A lot.
Okay. They can either make a child or break a child, or even a person. Rather,
And
why
they
only
sink
children?
really deep.
Yes, they do. They do sink very deeply. So one thing is there that there's never a comment if made on appearance which is really well intentioned. Right? So many people also come and say, this is very positive that you said, but like, nahi, hum aapke अच्छे के लिए बोल रहे हैं, or we are just warning you. But it's not like an earthquake or cyclone that you need warning against. And remember
Yeah.
that anybody who is struggling with a particular aspect of their body knows that.
100%.
They know that very well.
I think everyone knows what
Knows.
they feel.
So you don't need to really tell them, masking it as a well-intentioned comment.
yeah, if
And-
somebody has a bald patch, they're not
Yes,
blind.
exactly.
But then your three friends and their three mothers
Yes.
will make sure that they tell you, beta, do you know?
yeah, do you know? But
And
we
you
know.
can put this on it. They're aware.
Right. Yes. Or, like even other subtle things like if you go, let's say, to some place and then you say that, oh, it's so good that you have that much energy at this body weight to dance. Like I used to go to a Zumba class and somebody had mentioned that, oh, how nice now that at your weight also you are, dancing. But is that like a compliment, or is that showing them that you're slightly
Insulting.
overweight? Yes, it is an insult. So all these things have to be taken into consideration, that these comments don't really help. And the other thing that it's deeply ingrained in our culture is that people feel that they can motivate a person through shame. Right? Like that is okay maybe at the field, when you say that, come on, like do it, like the other team is winning, or the other team has scored like 5 goals and we are just, maybe coaches can do that.
Yeah.
Right? Or it is for little things. But if in general, when you use shame to fix a body image problem, then it doesn't help, because then that person goes in the spiral of self-doubt, depression, loneliness, social avoidance. So that never helps. It never helps to say that, oh, you're so many kgs higher, nobody is going to marry you or nobody is going to like you, so now you should lose weight. Rarely will it ever be that after that kind of pep talk or well-intentioned comment will ever anybody start exercising or eating healthy, because they'll have to go through this entire process of self-doubt, of not liking self, and then maybe eventually realizing that what is good for them. But that cannot come through this comment for sure.
Yeah. Like they always say that when the person realizes himself,
Yes.
that's when they'll really make a move. So no
Absolutely.
point nagging or
Yes.
pushing someone too much.
Correct,
And you're right, like the positive pushing or negative pushing, like you said, coaches do on a football field before a dance performance. It actually pushes you to do better.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you can't body shame and expect
No.
that, oh, sudden change is going to happen.
Yes.
But I also feel that a lot of body shaming and a lot of self-doubt ultimately affects your relationship with food.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. How do you define a healthy relationship with food from a psychological perspective?
Okay, so see, first we have to understand what is food and what is its purpose. The sole purpose of food is to give us energy during the day, to fuel our body so that we can sustain the whole day. It can give us nutrients which are important for a normal body functioning.
Correct.
That's the only role of food. But what happens is that people have a love-hate relationship with food sometimes. Some people are foodie, that's okay. But some use food to self-soothe, or to, deal with their emotions, or, because food is so much
Comfort.
ingrained in our culture. Like, how it is that, you celebrate, you have food, you're upset, you have food.
You have a festival, you have
festival,
food.
you have food. So food is a very important aspect in our life.
It is actually projected as happiness.
Yes, it is. But the problem is that people who struggle with their unhealthy relationship with food also use it when they are feeling something negative. And that has other psychological implications. Like when a person feels that they're having too much food, but they cannot stop themselves, that's when the body related issues start coming. Like some people they have laxative misuse as a problem. Some people purge, vomit, starve themselves, go through strenuous diets for that. So that is when the unhealthy relationship with food comes up.
I had a friend in university. This is going back 20 years. And she used to eat and she used to throw up.
Yeah.
I didn't even know the word
Bulimia,
back
nervosa.
then.
Yes.
And I remember coming across this term on a flight in a magazine about some actress who died. And that is when I discovered the word.
Yes.
And that is when I think I started reading about it and kind of came into my dictionary and wanted to explore what it means. But my research based on yesterday was that it is the most common thing between girls
Yes.
today.
Yes.
Can you explain this phenomenon a little bit?
Yeah, so basically what happens is that because you have this unhealthy relationship with food, you're not able to avoid food. Okay, and you're using food to deal with a void or to deal with an emotion which you're feeling in the moment. So when people say that, but why do you eat only first so that then you have to vomit? Don't eat. So that's not possible. Why? Because food is not only fulfilling their physical hunger, but it is also
Internal.
helping them internally and psychologically. So they have it. Now, the moment they have it, they realize that, oh my God, like so many calories, and that person obviously has a body image problem. That's why they have bulimia. So once the food goes inside, they do feel satiated. And many a times, because they know that they can vomit it out, they may eat even more. So let's say I have people who will have even 30 pani puris and say, but anyways, I'm going to puke it out
My
later.
God.
I have had an incident where a person, to puke, it wasn't coming out, has used a very tiny spoon, and the spoon has actually gone down, leading to a choking where this girl was alone in university, but she was saved because aggressively, obviously she tried to remove it, and that's how she got referred to me. That now this has gone at a level where, this is danger to life.
Correct.
Because the puke was not coming out. It must be like, I think around 25 minutes or something had passed because her friends were with her. And she said that I was trying my level best for them to leave home so that I could start vomiting. But she couldn't do that. And then she used a little spoon, which, by mistake, it just dropped. And then she had, it was a really small one, but it's really alarming. And that's how that case had come to me.
That's a horrifying
Yes,
experience.
it is horrifying. So
And as
all
a
cases
parent,
are not
you'd be
like that, but
mortified.
yes, so the parent was mortified, and that's how they had got her to me for therapy. But you see, that is the extent to which this vomiting becomes important, because they feel that, okay, we can eat what we want and then we'll just puke it up. It is very unhealthy. It also damages this region. It's just not okay to do that.
So, do you think it's almost essential at this point in the society we're living in, the kind of awareness today's
Yes.
children and teenagers have? Don't you think it's almost essential that they have to go through counseling? Don't you think, and I won't use the word therapy because people are scared of this word therapy and people think like something has to be wrong with the
Wrong
word
with
therapy.
yes.
But my whole point is that why can't every child speak to a professional, call it monthly, weekly, fortnightly, whatever works for every child and parent, but just to put things in perspective, number
Yes.
one. Number two, to understand how to take in all this information that is available to them.
Right.
Because they're not equipped with the skill set to take that information in the right way.
Yes.
They will misuse it at some point or the other. Their mind will misuse it at some point in the other. So don't you think it's almost essential?
It is very, very essential. And in this world where we are staying, where, quick fixes are, a solution to everything, that, instead of working hard, why don't you do something like this? Like take an extreme measure and get done with it. At that time, I think it's very important for kids to understand, and that they can do through professional counseling. And there is nothing wrong. And once, they develop that, okay, there's nothing wrong in going to a counselor, then I mean they can influence their friends also, because this is for a healthier thing.
Correct.
And believe me, most people who come for therapy or counseling is that initially they have a setback, or they have this doubt that how will it go, or do I really need it. There are rarely people who after a therapy session feel that I shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
So I think that the first step a parent could take, and that just shows that we care about our mental health.
And I think if you see your children having a bad relationship with food, try and not fix it yourself.
Yeah.
Try
True.
to get
Try
a
to, yes,
professional
definitely,
to
because
fix
you
it.
will never be able to fix it.
Yeah.
However much Google, articles you read, a
Yeah.
professional who is trained, in these specific aspects
Yeah.
will know. And it is like an investment for the kid's future, right?
100%.
Mental health is also an investment. Like if a child is going to ask you for something expensive, you're going to buy it someday. So then why not
And most
therapy or
likely
counseling?
today, very immediately.
Yes, very immediately.
Kids, like parents, given very immediately to demands.
Yes.
In our time, we really had to earn it.
Yes, we had to. And what parents don't realize is that a counseling or a therapy session also, provides that kind of neutrality. And it also gives the child a safe space to say something that they may not be able to tell the parents for whatever reason, even if they are very close to them, right? So it gives them a person who is neutral, and that they could, deal with their problems in a better way.
I know people who have had an eating disorder for years. I know women my age who have been dieting, I think, for the last 20 years. And they still are unhappy, with their weight, appearance, whatever you call it. Do you think someone can actually heal from that and change their relationship with food after years of dieting and years of bad relationship with food?
Yes, they can. So there is always hope. So first thing to understand to change your relationship with food is that don't make food your emotional manager. Okay, that is very important. So you first remove that. Food is only to give you energy. So firstly, we do that. Now the availability and the reach that the food apps have is a lot.
Yeah.
Right? So I make so many people delete those apps, or I say that work hard to get that food at that hour in the night. So let's say that at 11 o'clock, somebody gets a craving, or 12 o'clock, they say Netflix and chill. You need popcorn, you need ice cream, chocolate. If it's not available at home, then you'll have to force yourself. You really want to change your relationship with food, force yourself to go and fetch it. Mostly you may not want to go,
Yeah.
right? That's how you
You'll
could
give up.
Yeah, you'll give up. So you can try those kind of things as well. But the main thing is that food is not a mood manager. And if you can learn that and have, let's say, a food monitoring chart, it's very simple. You can also make it at home. So basically, what does a food monitoring chart have? Time, okay, what you had.
Yeah.
Very important is location. Where were you? Were you in the kitchen? Were you near the fridge? Were you on a couch? Or were you in a car, probably, rushing to work?
Yeah.
So for many people, they may have a really healthy day, right? They'll have salads, they'll have like black coffee and all of that. And in the evening, they may just succumb to it because of a calorie deficit, because they have, used a particular diet and they've not had carbs. So then the body is asking for carbs.
Yeah.
And then they completely give up, and then it could be like McDonald's burger, fries, anything. So that kind of pattern has to stop, and a food monitoring form really helps. It doesn't help, it doesn't show you that you are losing in your journey. It only gives you a perspective. It's a very good way of knowing your pattern. So if you had it for a week, you would know, and you'd have a perspective of how and when are your weak moments and what are you really doing about it.
But my observation is that what you're saying happens very rarely. People with years of eating disorder will jump from dietitian to dietitian,
Yes.
coach to coach. But in
Crash
the
diets.
yeah, but in the end, that eating disorder is so strong, or the bad relationship with food is so strong, that they will have that either yo-yo or extreme dieting or extreme weight gain then extreme weight loss. So I think, according to me, instead of trying to journal, they need to really look deep within, like why do they
Definitely. So, but
approach
that is,
food?
yes,
Like,
so
what
that
is
is
the
when they go to a
emotional-
professional.
Yeah.
Yes. What is the void that they are trying to
Fulfill.
That's very, very important. So, this is just to start with.
Yeah.
When you say, but definitely, when you have years and years of disordered eating, professional help is what is required. But this is one way of starting. And like I said, this is a quick fix generation. Everything is a minute away. Happiness is waiting in your cart, like how these, fashion apps tell you that you're just one step away. That happens same with other fillers, Botox and all also, that you are just one surgery away or one filler away from happiness, or you are just one click away from feeling good after ordering ice cream. So it's a quick fix generation, which will have to realize that the work to be done has to be deeper and you have to do it professionally.
Also, I think the main understanding we must put into our children is everybody's trying to sell you something.
Yes,
Buy into
true.
it.
Of course.
Like when we were kids and you saw hawk vendors,
Yes.
and your mother and your father would say, you don't need to buy everything from a hawk
Yes,
vendor.
correct.
Walk, keep walking.
Yes,
So we
yes.
were taught like don't give in to everyone
Yes.
screaming and saying, ice cream, le lo, popcorn,
Yeah.
le lo. You have to actually go and buy it. But now
Yes.
today it's silent sale.
It is silent, but it is always
imagery-based.
bombarded,
Yeah, and
yes.
it's imagery based
Yes.
to attract you or whatever. Fall into
Correct.
that trap.
Yes.
So I think it's that teaching of that. In the end, everyone's trying to make a sale.
Yes.
Everyone's trying to make a buck out of you by making you feel bad about yourself.
Right.
So that kind of understanding would be really important.
So a good therapist or at parents level also you can teach your kids how to control impulses. That's a very important thing to teach. That if I get a feeling or if I have a need, it's not necessary that it has to be fulfilled right here, right now. And that's an important life skill to learn.
Yeah.
Right? Because as soon as you open any app, every third or fourth post is nowadays sponsored. And it is, of course, catering to your needs because the AI is so strong to know what you are actually looking at or what you desire. So, to be able to say that, okay, this is not something that I want today, or even if I want, let it wait. Maybe the impulse and the urge might go away. But we are so quick to fall for that urge and make that purchase or make that choice.
Right. So let's talk about building self-love. One aspect is seeking help because I think if you build a lot of self-love, you won't fall into a lot of these traps. It also comes from lack of self-love and lack of self-confidence, low self-esteem. So tell me, what does self-love actually mean from a psychological perspective? People use this as a joking, a comedy word from a movie. Yeah, she has a lot of self-love, or you need to practice this. But people don't actually know the deep psychological meaning behind it.
Right.
Can you explain this?
Yes. So mostly that kind of that joking wala self-love is when people mistake that for being selfish or thinking about self. That's not what self-love is. So self-love is something when there is a good synchrony between your physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual self. When you create a mind space or you create an environment in your head to be able to accept yourself the way you are, which does not need any fixing, that would be termed as self-love. It's very important to do that because most people are obviously trying to change who they are. So unconditional self-acceptance is the first step towards self-love, not wanting to change anything about themselves.
And do you think only self-love can lead to contentment?
Not only because contentment comes from many things, but if you are content from within, then it's not like a monster waiting to explode at all. It is something that, okay, if by self you're okay, then the other things are still more manageable.
Yeah.
But those who have deep contentment from within are otherwise also naturally positive people. And by positive, of course, I don't mean toxic positive people, but just positive, easygoing, taking things easy people, kind of people.
So tell me some of the concrete practices that help us form a foundation of good self-acceptance.
Okay, so self-acceptance is something where you do not compare yourself with anyone, right? You're okay being you. What people generally do is that while accepting self, they only try to accept what is convenient to them, right? So they continue to have other unhelpful patterns in life. Like, let's say, if you have a toxic best friend, okay, you want self acceptance, that friend is probably not healthy for you, but you're not breaking that pattern. But you want self-acceptance. Both cannot coexist together.
Correct.
So either, of course, you repair that relationship with that person or you do something about it. But always remember that if you are going to have previous negative patterns, then it is very difficult to get self acceptance.
Yeah.
So you have to change a few things internally as well. So you'll have to have, like, let's say, maybe better boundaries, being more assertive, being out there, trying to love self and not keep justifying your actions or behaviors to people who challenge your beliefs if you feel that those beliefs are correct. Like, let's say also that self acceptance has to do with understanding that not everybody is looking at you and looking at your flaws or your insecurities.
I
Right?
actually believe that
Right.
everyone is very busy looking at themselves.
Yes.
So the amount we think that people
Correct.
care, people don't
People
care.
don't care. And
Yeah.
even if they were to see something, they are not thinking about you 24/7. But just tell yourself maybe you're not that important also.
But you're not.
You're not, right?
Yeah.
So like that. So okay, so people think that okay, I have this flaw, and whenever I go out, this is what a person sees in me.
Everybody's looking at it.
Yes. Right?
But actually no one is.
No, actually no one is. Like today, like let's say it goes for my childhood, it goes back. Like today when I saw you, the first thing that I saw in you was, oh, she has this clear skin. Right? That's because as a child, I was bullied for my pimples and told that my skin is like sandpaper. And even though I'm a therapist and I know, I do not believe in that anymore, but you see how that childhood problem still, till date, even after being a therapist for so many years, it just comes up because the first thing that I saw in you was, oh, look what a clear skin she has. It's not going to do any harm or damage,
understood.
but it still does come.
It's because it's almost like the deepest conversation with self.
Yes.
And it's there since childhood.
Yes.
So it comes up so quickly
Correct.
that you don't even know how to change that conversation. But you
Correct.
as an adult have learned that it's not important.
Correct.
But I think because it's so deep rooted.
Yes, it's so deep. You can't stop it from coming. Yes, you can stop from mulling over it.
You're
for
right.
sure.
So I think when I was in school, now that you're saying that, I'm trying to notice what is it that occurs to me a lot is when I was in school, I was called shorty. So a lot of my friends, and in a way, I used to think it's cute. I didn't think it was offensive. I didn't think less of myself. But I knew that I'm short.
Right.
So I knew it as a statement, not as a negative or a positive comment, but as a
Correct.
statement, like I'm
Yes.
short.
Right.
And everybody else is tall. Most of my friends are much taller than me. So you're right, but now when I see people, I do notice a height, like as the one of the
Yes.
first things I notice.
Yes.
I don't actually compare myself to it, but like you're saying, it's deep rooted.
It's deeper. So this is how it
So,
influences, right?
the
See, it is so
tall-
much a part of our life.
And the tall is in
Yes.
comparison to the fact that I am short.
Correct.
That person might think they're average heighted or they're actually short for themselves or in their family or in their surroundings.
Yes.
But to me, I always think like when I enter, I'm like, oh wow, so tall. Oh yeah, that
Yes.
guy was tall. And I describe also like that.
Correct.
Now that you say it, I describe
Yes.
also that. I always like tell my husband, I met that guy, that really tall one.
Yes.
Or, I met that girl, the tall wife.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it is
So
a
it is
part
so
of my...
deep rooted. Yes, for all of us. And the last thing about, I think, self acceptance is that there shouldn't be any condition to it. Okay. So what people keep telling themselves is that, okay, if I get thinner, I will be better. Some people come to me and say that, oh, I cannot go for a beach holiday till I lose 5 kgs. I'm like, boss, to go on a beach holiday, you need money, you need visa, you need hotel reservations and the time to go for a beach holiday.
That's true.
You don't need a bikini body to go on a beach holiday.
And the only person who's looking at you is yourself.
Yes, yourself. Or if you're too much into Instagram and posting and then
let's
post
say
and
you're not.
edit, you're not. Still, it's only
Yeah.
you are looking at yourself.
Yeah.
So don't make choices. So that's what I tell people, that don't make choices based on trying to change something about you. Accept yourself the way you are.
Wow, I think that's a very hard thing to do.
Yes.
I think it's easier said than done.
Yes.
It requires a lot of internal work. It requires a lot of work on the childhood that you've
Yes.
had.
Yes.
The comments that are saved, like you said, yours is
Yes.
saved about skin, let's say mine is saved about height, unrealizingly in your subconscious. What we can do is our best,
Yes.
try to work on the subconscious voices.
Yes.
Because they're there. The subconscious voices are very strong and we don't even realize how strong they are.
Correct.
And I think they also become reason to bully.
Yes.
So when my observation, somebody's told in their household they're very good looking, you have the most beautiful hair, as long as it's good to help your child have a healthy image of themselves, don't overdo it. Because I've seen then those kids bullying other kids,
Yes.
calling them ugly, fat, dark, short, tall, whatever the comments may be, because they have been told that self-elevation, they have a superiority complex. So I think one is inferiority, where
Yes.
you feel inferior to others,
Correct.
which comes from these childhood traumas or
Yes.
incidents. The other is also you feel superior
Yes.
because you've been told you're superior. You're so intelligent. You're the most intelligent kid I've seen in the world. Automatically, the kid thinks everybody else is dumb. The bullying will happen.
Right.
So, there are extremes.
Yes, the extremes, and that's what parents have to do. Nothing told to the kid should be in an extreme. And if they do say that, okay, you are the most intelligent in your class, but also they could name a few things that the child can work on. So, whenever talking to a child, make sure that the thoughts that you put in their heads are balanced.
Yeah.
They are both ways. So, the child doesn't, sit on some high horse and say that, okay, I am the best only and nobody's better than me.
Also, I think you're setting up that child for future failures and
Yes.
future therapy lessons, because that child would grow up with this
Yes.
cushioning or with this kind of cloud9
Absolutely.
thought process about themselves, and then they wouldn't know what to do in adult life, and real
Correct.
life hits you.
Because real life is not that way. And
Correct.
here you are the big fish in a small pond. And there in the sea of life, there are going to be people who are better, smarter, and such children
Always.
actually feel, yes, always. And then they feel so lost because then their sense of self used to come from a fact that they were unique, that they were above everybody else.
Correct.
And now it's no longer true in the real world. So then such kids then may turn out to adults who are unsure about themselves, who have self-doubt. Those are the ones who may have more risk-taking behaviors. They may be more impulsive as adults. So that also has a big impact on an adult.
Yeah, I think their self-image would shatter.
Yes.
And if that happens at any age. So how do you help clients distinguish between authentic self-love and toxic positivity?
So toxic positivity is the need to create a state of mind where everything is positive and negative things should not affect you at all. So it means as though you have to be immune to any difficulty, and if the difficulty comes, you cannot look at it negatively, so you cannot complain, you cannot go against it. You just have to be, oh, everything is good. Now it's not possible
That's an
for a
unnatural
person.
state of being.
Yeah. Like a person cannot always be a sunny, positive person.
Yeah.
If you go, even the sun, revolves around the earth and it is only for a few hours that there is light and then there's going to be darkness.
Yeah.
So toxic positivity tries to convince a person that you just have to be constantly happy, on a happy high,
Positive
take things
all the
positive. That does not work in the real world. It might work for a day or two when you are on a high. But emotions are that way. Emotions come as waves. And remember that no emotion is constant. Even the extreme happiness will never stay constant. And of course, the same goes with sadness and all. But toxic positivity, people try to make it a way of living and then definitely crumble because it is not sustainable at all.
So you can't have one emotion for too long.
Not at all.
Like I can't be angry for too long. I
Yes.
really can't be happy and smiling. I will have my moments of quiet.
Yes.
It's not necessarily go to upset, but I might come down in the radar to quiet, peace, lost. There are so many emotions. And you're right,
Right.
we experience all of them for bouts.
Bouts.
And I think that is the beauty of life.
Yes.
That if I did not have a moment of quiet, I wouldn't know what a moment of loudness
Love.
was.
Yes.
And if I didn't have a moment of sunniness, I wouldn't know what darkness was.
Correct.
So the whole beauty is that whole array of yeses and nos,
Yes.
ups and downs. And if we
Yes.
didn't have that, we wouldn't understand
We wouldn't.
which one we're in.
Yes, because this again is very extreme, right? Because toxic positivity is something which is so loud, it is out there, it is so aggressive. It's almost like this is the only way you can live. So that kind of extreme never helps and it's never sustainable. So, for example, let's say, how do you distinguish between the two, right? So, let's say that I have somebody who comes to me who has a deep problem with her height because she wishes that she were a few inches taller, right? Now, when she had gone on Google before meeting me, she started following a few pages which, led to her believing that the only way to do this would be to be very aggressive, to wake up every day, write a gratitude journal, to be just so happy with self. And the problem was, and when she looked at the mirror, that's not what the mirror was telling her.
Yeah.
Because internally, she was feeling something else, but she had made herself believe that this is how you have to be. And as usual, it was not sustainable.
Correct.
So when she did come to therapy, she had to learn how to see herself as a whole person, as a person with so many other traits, and have love which resonates with her. Not something which screams, "You're good, you're amazing, you're this, you're that."
Yeah.
It was, so we went back to her childhood, we went back to her insecurities, and we saw that where could she value herself truly and what resonated with her. And she had to agree with that concept, and then finally she could put that toxic positivity aside and she could see herself the way she was. Of course, she wasn't as happy like what she wanted to be, so it was a more balanced thing. But today she can look at herself and she can say that, fine, I may not be just tall, but I'm not all bad. I'm also an amalgamation of so many different things, and today I like myself for who I am.
Yeah, because I think in the end, it's also so important to understand that as much as I appreciate affirmations and things like
Yeah.
that, but sometimes they are also just a coping mechanism.
Right.
They're not really addressing the issue.
No.
And it is keeping a person away from understanding that whatever you may be unhappy about, whether it's family, your relationships, food, life, money, there are so many aspects, right?
Yes.
You could be miserable with any aspect. That is an aspect.
Yes.
That is not your entire life. It is a part or a chunk of your life. Your life
Right.
is that much.
Yes.
So I think false positivity, like you
Yes.
said, toxic positivity, repetition of affirmations on top of what you're feeling. Don't
Yeah.
feel it. Just feel happy. Look at yourself and tell yourself you're the most beautiful person in the world.
How do you do that? Because that image is not reflecting same in
And
the
not
mirror
only that,
to
I think
you.
it's kind of like fake chanting.
Yes,
you're
fake
fake chanting. You're telling yourself that I'm very beautiful, but inside you're like, shit, 2 pimples on my forehead.
Yes.
I'm getting, I think, a slight beard. At
Yes.
40, you start getting crazy pigmentation.
Yes.
You would know, I would know.
Yes, of
And then
course.
tell yourself it's a part of growing up. It's a part of aging gracefully. But I'm saying a lot of it can be like, it's like sweeping on top.
Yes.
You're not actually addressing the dirt, but you're like, oh, just sweep on top. It's okay.
Right.
Just put a little bit of butter on top. It's fine if the toast is burnt.
Yes.
But you got to
correct.
address the fact that the toast is burnt.
Correct.
There are issues.
Yes.
So it goes, I strongly believe this. I completely agree with you that self-love is very different to preaching positivity to self.
Correct. Absolutely.
And I think people do confuse the two.
Yes, they do all the time. And that's also when they Google, that's what they get.
Yeah,
so
because
it adds
the
to
internet
that.
is preaching.
Yes, it's preaching, always preaching.
Yeah.
And nobody shows the next day what happens, right? And if you see anybody's story, you are not seeing their struggles. You are seeing them only, at that point in time when they have achieved something. So nobody is seeing the struggle. So if they are saying something positive, but were they themselves positive 3 years ago? Today,
Yeah.
if they are advocating toxic positivity, but what were they doing maybe 3 years ago, 5 years ago? They may also have gone through self-doubt. But what happens here is that their self-doubt or struggles, they just become a footnote of their conversation.
Yeah.
And it's all about, what they've achieved. Now they are, here, there, everywhere. So that is something that as human beings, we need to realize that when you're seeing somebody's success story, remember that the struggles are a footnote right now, but actually those would have been more than the current glory of the person.
100%. Those are the chapters.
Yes.
You should be reading.
Exactly.
Yeah, next
to
one.
know, and you'll be even able to resonate with it, right? That, okay,
100%.
I am going through the same thing.
100%. I think it's easier, in fact, to resonate with struggles
Yes.
than to resonate with success.
Correct.
So when somebody comes up and says, I have made this fit body in the last 1 year. I've worked very hard. I went underground and now I've lost 30 kgs and I'm very happy with my body. That statement sounds okay.
Yeah.
But when that person talks about 10 years
Yeah.
of the struggle with weight, it is more relatable.
Yes, always.
Then,
always.
that 1 year of being underground and I
Correct.
suddenly did a diet and I suddenly did this and I
Yes.
suddenly did that. And then you find it hard to believe, like, how did you suddenly do it?
Correct.
What led you to it?
What led you to it? Yes,
So
that's very
you're
important.
very important. That it's always say journey is very important.
Yes.
And I don't know why people actually miss out on discussing the journey.
That's what, no, it just becomes a footnote.
Yeah.
But the journey is what people need to know, because everybody needs to know what the struggles were rather than just, some prize that you've got now.
Correct.
Yes.
You know, I when I spoke to you the first time and I asked you to come on this podcast, I was very excited about talking about childhood, self-image, bullying, and I think everyone listening. So, tell us any final words of encouragement or wisdom that you would like to tell our listeners on the topics of self-love, acceptance, and body image.
So, one thing I would like to say is that remember that self and your body is the only thing that is going to be with you till your last breath. So, learn to value it more, learn to be kind, be compassionate, because that is the thing which is actually taking you in this world, in this journey. And us hating on self doesn't really work.
Correct.
So, that would be one. And the second thing is that, we live in a world with a triggering environment. There are so many confusing things about, diet, about exercise. Then there are unachievable bodies. There are Botox, fillers, airbrushing. So we live in a really chaotic world. So in that chaotic world, if you learn to balance yourself, then do that and remember that there is only one you. There's nobody like you,
Yeah.
and you are the real deal. So that is what I would tell my listeners.
Amazing. That is so beautiful. Thank you, Krishnaz. We've had a pleasure speaking with you. And I hope parents can teach this kind of self acceptance and self love and not toxic positivity to their children, growing
Right.
teenagers today, because I think it'll be very important how they function tomorrow.
Yes, thank you, Ashna. I had a great time. And it's the first time that I'm meeting a host who's so passionate about the subject. And this two-way conversation was just very, very refreshing for me.
Thank
And I enjoyed every bit of it.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.